everybody. Hopefully everybody's having a great day so far, and looking forward to our conversation about everything and anything related to getting ready for the MCAT and really easing the jitters that might be on your mind and in your heads as far as this exam is concerned, and getting ready for test day and how to spend these last couple hours. So my name is Petros Manassi. I'm the Director of Pre-Health Programs here at Kaplan. But more importantly, I am a veteran MCAT instructor. The reason I say more importantly is I'm really sitting here today as somebody who has worked with thousands and thousands of students getting ready for the MCAT and getting ready, for this all-important exam. And sometimes, these last couple days kind of leading into the exam, we get really, really nervous and kind of everything starts to maybe fall apart a little bit. And it's really important to stay calm and kind of carry on and carry forward as you lead up into the exam. So really what I wanted to do here today was just talk about what it is that you could be doing to kind of reduce some of those stresses, some of those jitters that are really so easy to kind of creep into your life. And I think that's the first thing that we have to kind of think about how to manage is how easy it is for you to kind of get nervous and how easy it is for things to start to creep in your life. And so the first bit of advice I'll give you is that, number one, if you're taking the test this coming Thursday, which I'm sure there are a lot of you that are going to take the test this Thursday, you really don't want to do anything tomorrow, right? That's the first thing, is that you are just essentially going to want to kind of relax and do nothing and not think about the MCAT, not even do any type of review, because it's really easy to kind of want or force yourself or to think that, oh, I need to be doing some type of review because tomorrow is the exam, and if I don't do some type of review, then I'm going to all of a sudden, implode, and it's not going to be not going to be good for anybody. So really, the reality is that you want to make sure that you are very much so taking tomorrow off if you're taking the test on Thursday. Now, if there are those of you tuned in here today who are taking the test down the line, same bit of advice, take the day before the MCAT off. So you're essentially going to kind of keep that as a as a day off for yourself, so that you're not too worried about those things as you move forward. So with that said, the other thing I wanted to kind of think about as we're approaching test day, like what could you be doing today, right? So what is it that could be happening right now? And I see a bunch of you that are chiming in from all over the place, so which is great. We got folks here from Canada even, so that's awesome. I got a lot of family up in Canada, so it's good to see everybody here. So here's the thing, as far as today goes, and kind of things that you should be thinking about today. Really, today is your last study day before you take the test on Thursday, right? That's the important thing to remind yourself of, is that we've got today and we got some work in. Today's not the day to be taking a full-length exam, right? Today's not the day to be kind of trying to tackle lots of new things as far as this exam. Really, today should be about you just kind of putting final little touches onto this project of getting ready for the MCAT. So really just brushing up on a few things here and there. If there's still a couple areas that are a little bit, tougher for you or a little bit concerning, maybe do a little bit of review in those. But you don't want to kind of go gung-ho right now and start something new, for instance, right? Today's not the day to learn a brand new subject that you've never touched before the MCAT. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but that's just the reality of how this exam goes. So that's the first thing that you want to be thinking about. Now, the second thing I wanted you to kind of put your mind at ease is, tomorrow is this relaxing day, but the same should be true for the day of the test, right? Too often do I hear from students that say, you know what, I was doing really, really well, but the morning of the exam, I totally stressed out. I totally kind of everything imploded. So get a good night's sleep the night before the exam, right? In an ideal situation, an ideal world, you've already kind of been training your mind and training your body to fall asleep at the right time so that you wake up at the right time before you go and take the exam. But at the same time, when the test day comes, that is a very, very important day, and it's hard to suppress maybe some of the emotion and some of the anxiety that might creep up. So my general suggestions for anybody who's taking this exam is that the morning of the test, you want to really have as quiet of a morning as you possibly can. So this should be kind of me time, right? This is really time that you are going to invest in yourself prior to going and taking the actual exam. You want to make sure that you have a good, hearty breakfast, because it's going to be, and I don't want to, we're not going to talk about nutrition per se, but I want to make sure that you are kind of, you're fully stocked as far as energy, because it's going to be some time before you'll be able to have a snack again, right? So if you got questions about this, by all means, let us know in the comments. But it's, it's important to make sure that you get a good breakfast, but you don't want it to be such a good breakfast that you all of a sudden go into food coma right away, right? So you want to make sure that you are having a good, healthy breakfast that morning. But at the same time, think of it like warming up your car, right? Especially if you live in a colder climate. You don't want to turn your car engine on and just start driving. You need to warm the car engine up. The same thing goes for your mind. Same thing goes for you as an individual, not just your mind, but your body as well. So the morning of the exam, while you're having your nutritious and healthy breakfast that's going to keep you nice and full up through the first time that you get a little snack during the exam, you want to start to warm up your brain. And a real kind of natural place to do so is if you've been working with flashcards. That's a great place to look, but that also could stress you out a little bit. So, read a chapter from a book that you have already read, right? So something that just to get your mind going. I wouldn't necessarily suggest reading the newspaper, because maybe you'll read something that you don't want to hear the morning of the exam, right? Maybe you'll read something, you'll be like, I totally don't agree with what you're saying, or I totally love what you're saying. So, you want to make sure that you are kind of reading something to get the juices flowing as far as your mind goes, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to be reading something that's completely new. At the same time, though, you want to do some problems, right? You want to kind of get yourself warmed up. And so my suggestion, and our suggestion, is get some problems that you have already worked through. So you already know that you can get it right. Just practice the actual motion of the problem solving, because what that will help you with, of course, is when you go to the actual exam, the exam being so much of a problem-solving type exam, regardless if you're actually doing calculations or you're just trying to find relationships between one subject and another. The idea here is that you want to get that kind of critical thinking aspect of your brain really warmed up and really going as you're moving on and moving forward with this exam. All right, so really, really important to kind of think about those things, and important to be thinking about kind of what that morning is going to look like. Now, if you're like me, or like most people who take exams, you probably get a little nervous during the exam, and that's completely normal, right? So first and foremost, you're not alone. Everybody gets nervous during these exams. Everybody gets nervous, or a lot of people get nervous during the MCAT, especially because it is such a long exam. And the thing to remember about the MCAT is that it is an endurance test. As much as being a test about the sciences and critical thinking skills, there is a level of endurance that one has to mentally prepare for, and also throughout the course of the day, constantly be kind of re-upping their confidence in themselves as you are taking the test. So really important that you stay calm not only before the exam, but you're also staying calm during the test. So the best thing that you can do for yourself, number one, is when you get to the testing facility, should you see friends of yours or classmates of yours, you want to acknowledge their existence, but you don't necessarily want to be like striking up conversations. Really, that day of the test is your day, so you want to remain isolated so that you're not kind of getting too distracted by the others who might be there testing as well. The real main people that you're going to want to interact with are, of course, the administrators, right? So the folks that are checking you in, the folks that are going to be checking you out, kind of the folks that are working at the testing location. But at the same time, as far as kind of staying calm with this with the day of the exam, is also going to be about you thinking about how you are going to be approaching each of the sections prior to the sections actually beginning. So really part of this is part of your prep work, in that you want to have a very, very strong game plan as far as the day is concerned, right? So that's really, really going to be a big part of your success, is saying to yourself, okay, here's how I'm going to attack the chemical and physical sciences section. Here's how I'm going to attack the car section. Here's how I'm going to attack the behavioral sciences section. So you really want to have a kind of very clear mindset of what it is that you're going to be doing for each of those sections, so that you're not going in there going, I'm just gonna do lots of problems and see how it goes. Right? This isn't about seeing how it goes. This is about having a very, very solid type of attack and a very, very solid way to to kind of think this through and to think this through as far as the test is concerned. So that's before the test, but also during the exam, if you find yourself getting jitters, right? If you start to see yourself getting a little bit nervous and potentially even starting to lose focus, which is very, very normal throughout a long exam like the MCAT, to lose a little bit of focus. When you lose focus, that is your mind and that is your body telling you that you are fatigued. So essentially what that means is that you need to take a short little break. And by taking a short little break, I mean closing your eyes and looking away from the computer screen. Right? So it's gonna be a little hard to maybe remind yourself of that. But if you find yourself getting distracted during the test or getting a little nervous or kind of losing that calm that you have, that just means that you need to refocus and recenter yourself. So it's perfectly normal and perfectly a great idea to take these 5-second, even 10-second rests. Now, you don't want to be taking a whole bunch of 10-second rests in consecutive succession to each other, because then, of course, what's going to happen is you're going to run out of time and not have answered any questions on the test, and you'll be more nervous. But the idea is that you want to be taking the breaks, because if you keep working through as you're fatigued or as you've lost focus, what's going to end up happening is your performance is going to plummet. The other thing that happens so often, and let me know in the comments, or if you got a question about this, let us know by posting a question, but it's so easy during the test, during a given section, to start to second guess yourself, right? To start thinking, did I do something right, or maybe I should go back, and you kind of start to panic from that kind of back and forth in your mind. Don't do that to yourself. Essentially, move on to the next set of problems, move on to the next passage. This is especially true during the breaks. So the MCAT has 3 very specific breaks built in, right? They have 2 little breaks in between the first and second session and the third and fourth section, and then they got the big kind of 30-minute break, your lunch break, in between the second and third section. It's really easy during that time to start second guessing yourself as far as what happened in the previous section. So what ends up happening is you don't actually get the break that you need, and you end up fatiguing your mind even more, and then you don't do as well on the next upcoming section. The reality is that once the time is up on a given section, you can't go back and change any of the answers, right? It's done. So when section 1 is done, section 1 is done. So you can't go back. So once it's done, it's done. So don't worry about it anymore. Just let it leave your mind. Effectively, what I tell my students, and I'm telling you this today, once you have finished the Chem Phys section, you forget about all the chemistry and the physics that you had on that section. You just, not just on that section, but just in general, because you don't need that anymore as far as the test. You finish the cars section, you throw out everything you knew about cars. Same thing goes with the biochem section, right? You're kind of throwing away material as you're using it because you're not going to need it anymore. So you're getting kind of lighter and lighter throughout the test, and as you're getting closer and closer to finishing the given test. So if you need to regain that focus, really, really important to do so, and then especially use the breaks to regain that focus. And then lastly, if you find yourself getting overly kind of hung up on a given question, or overly hung up on a given passage, or overly hung up kind of on a given section, you just kind of are feeling a challenge and you don't see yourself kind of progressing through, what that also means is that you are essentially kind of trying to do too much with a given question. So general recommendation for how to overcome the challenge of when you are getting overly challenged on the test is to effectively force yourself to be reading for purpose and to be making sure that you are answering the question that is being asked and nothing more, right? Really nothing more throughout it. The other part of this is the fact that during the test, you might feel that the test is a little harder than you're used to the test being, especially if you've been taking full-length practice exams. That's normal. That's the test day nerves that kind of kicks in that makes you think, oh, this is actually harder than I remember it being. It isn't necessarily harder. You just perceive that it is potentially much harder than it actually is. And that sometimes freaks students out, and it's easy to get freaked out by it, but if you get freaked out by it, then of course what's going to end up happening is you're going to hurt your progress in the long run. So, it's okay. In fact, it's okay that the test is challenging. You kind of want the hardest test that you can get, because if the harder the test, the better the curve is going to be as far as, when they're norming out the test for you. But the reality is just answer as many questions right as you can. Don't be counting questions and thinking, okay, I definitely got this number right, and I definitely got these wrong, so this is my rough percentage, so here's what I think my score is going to be. Don't be doing any of that during the test. That will only distract you even more. Essentially, just work through and try to do everything you possibly can, everything you have prepared yourself for, to get as many questions right along the way. Now, we had a great question that came in a couple minutes ago, so my apologies for not answering this right away, but now is the more appropriate time to come in. So this question is from June. So June asks, in terms of exam dates, so June's taking the exam on the 28th, which is awesome. Should you be taking another full-length exam this weekend, or should you hold off? So generally speaking, you want to be taking about one full-length exam per week leading up to the test. That's like a really good, comfortable cadence to be in. You can try to squeeze, one every 5 days if you wanted to. Like that's doable, but really one per week is good. So if you're taking the test on the 28th, I see no harm in taking another full-length exam or practice exam on the 21st. However, I would see harm in taking a full-length exam on the 21st without actually spending time to review the full-length exam after you've taken it. So real kind of, the news flash for those of you taking the test on the 28th of January, or if you're taking it beyond, make sure that you are always reviewing your full-length exams. And that means reviewing not just the questions that you got right, but the wrong, but also the questions that you got right. You want to kind of review the whole exam. You're not going to spend as much time reviewing the questions that you got right, but you want to make sure that you got them right for the right reasons, and that you got them correct in the most efficient manner possible. So there's also that element that comes to into it as well, is really making sure that you're doing everything you need to be doing, but being as efficient as possible. I always say this is my kind of mantra for the MCAT, and that is to be efficiently lazy. I'm not saying be lazy, I'm saying be efficiently lazy. So do the work you need to do to get as many points as you possibly can get on this exam, and that's going to really kind of help you very much in the long run as we go. So if you guys had other questions, by all means bring them in. In terms of how many practice exams or how many practice tests prior to taking the actual MCAT, that's going to vary from person to person. So Rachel, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. It's going to vary from person to person. Generally speaking, you're going to want to take about 4 to 5, right? That's kind of a good solid number. You can take more, right? There definitely, if you're taking a Kaplan course, there are definitely more than 5 available to you. I think we have 14 now as part of our course. We're not saying you got to take 14. You want to take the number that is going to be right for you. So the idea here is, the reason why we say about 4 or 5 is because you take your first one, and inevitably you will improve on the second one and the third one and the fourth one and the fifth one and all that good stuff. But really, if you kind of space it out, you take that first one, you take a couple of weeks before you take the second, or the second one, and then maybe at that point you then move into the cadence of 1 per week. You also don't want to take too many full-length exams, because a full-length exam on the MCAT, as you all know, is like an 8-hour investment of your time. That's a whole day of work. Right? We work from 9 to 5, right? That's what the song told us, that we work from 9 to 5. That's an 8-hour day. That's a lot of time commitment. So that's why you don't want to take too many practice tests, because there are other things that you should be doing for the MCAT with that time, right? So I'm not saying don't study for the MCAT with that time, but do something that's more productive in the way to make that happen. So Vishal, in terms of, if you're taking the exam in May, that's great. The way to do it is to build a calendar. So, build a study calendar for yourself and work backwards from your test date. So essentially, you put on the calendar when your test is actually going to be, and you start working back from that. So first thing you can start putting in is, of course, full-length exams kind of 1 week apart for the month leading up to it. Put another one in there about a month before you start taking a full length exam on a weekly basis, and kind of take this kind of as you go. So make it make it what you need it to be as far as your days of the week is going. Hello, Jubin. Nice to see you. So the idea as far as building out the calendar, what that will then do for you is also kind of not just give you structure, but also make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time. So earlier on in your preparation, you're going to be doing a whole lot more kind of content review. And then as you kind of move forward through the preparation, you're going to be doing more and more practicing, because the MCAT at the end of the day is essentially an exam that tests you, or I should say rewards you, with how much content you are able to apply. So it's not just about how much you know. I've had thousands of students, I've had tons of students who have known tons and tons of content, but they, at the beginning of their preparation, haven't been able to apply that content. So, really part of your building out of your MCAT awesomeness is to not just know a lot of content, but know how to apply the content. So that's the case there. Jacob, great question, or great thought. If you have the problem of going too fast, and yes, my simple answer is going to be to slow down. But here's the interesting thing: when you move too fast during the exam, that is also an indication that you are not managing your time well, right? So if you move too slowly through the exam, you're not able to get to all the questions, then I say, oh, that's a time management issue. And if you're moving too fast, that means you have a time management issue. And so it's not just about slowing down. So here's the deal. So yes, I'm going to say superficially, you got to slow down. But really what I'm going to say, really how you want to think about it, is it's not just about slowing down, but it's about being able to say to yourself, okay, let me make sure that I am in fact not missing anything. Because when you move too quickly through the exam, usually what that means is that you have glossed over some of the more important facts, or the more kind of the points in the passage or in the question that are those differentiating points. And I'll give you one example, very simple example. If the question is asking you, which of the following is not true according to the author of the passage? If you miss that one little word not, you're going to think 3 of the answer choices are in fact correct. So it's about not just slowing down, but also kind of taking in more as you work through the exam. So you're almost reading or practicing to read at a deeper level. Your question is a great one. Medical school applications, for the most part, work on a rolling admissions basis. That is true, which means the earlier you put your application in, the earlier they'll start evaluating your application, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reality is, if you are applying to schools this coming June, the best time to have completed your MCAT is by May, right? So that's the best time to have completed your MCAT by. The reason for that is then your scores will be available at the same time as the primary application gets, that you submit the primary. You're very welcome, Jacob. Hopefully that helped. If not, contact us and we can go into it even deeper. But as you're applying, they're evaluating, and if you apply without an MCAT score, it's not that they'll evaluate your application, they'll just put it on hold until the MCAT score comes in. So you can apply without the MCAT score being available, but that also means that you inevitably are getting, further down the line. The reality is this, though, guys. I'll close with this thought because it is 6:45, so we're going to wrap this up here. The reality is the following. Medical schools aren't going to admit a student just because they applied early. They're going to admit the students with the strongest MCAT scores, the best GPAs, and the best personal statements and letters of recommendation, and inevitably, the great interviews where they really see you connecting, and of course, research experience and all that good stuff. So really what you want to do is apply when your kind of application is going to showcase you the best. So with that said, we're going to wrap things up here. But if you got further questions, contact us on the Facebook page for sure. For those of you taking the test this Thursday, I'll be thinking about you for sure throughout the exam and throughout the day. Those who take it later this month, I'll be thinking about you then, and of course in the future. I'm sure our paths will cross again, but thank you all for joining us for a little bit of a discussion about how to ease your pre-MCAT jitters, and hopefully they're eased a little bit more. But have a great test day on Thursday.